There is a kind of hunger that has nothing to do with an empty plate. It is the quiet, background ache you feel when you realize your body has not had a moment of true rest in years. Not the rest of collapsing on a sofa after a long day, not the half rest of scrolling a screen in the dark, but a deeper rest. The chance to stop processing, stop receiving, stop being flooded, and instead turn inward to repair. In a world where we are taught to eat by the clock, snack when bored, sip something with calories between meals, and blunt every whisper of discomfort before it fully forms, that deeper rest has become rare. Fasting is one of the oldest ways human beings have made space for it. Most of us meet fasting, if at all, as a religious ritual or a crash diet. It is easy to miss that, beneath the cultural wrappers, there is a very simple conversation happening between hormones, cells, and time. When you eat, insulin rises. It is the signal of plenty, the hormone that tells your body, store this, build with this, keep some of this aside for later. When you stop eating for long enough, insulin slowly recedes and its quieter counterpart steps forward, glucagon. Where insulin says, put fuel away, glucagon says, bring fuel out. In the first few hours after a meal, you are mostly burning what you just ate. Somewhere between 10 and 16 hours after your last bite, depending on your metabolism, your liver moves from handing out stored sugar to reaching deeper into your reserves of fat. The body begins to flip from being fed from the outside to being fed from within. That flip is often painted as something extreme, as if fasting drags you into a harsh emergency state. The reality is gentler. For most of our history, this rhythm of eating and not eating, of feast and pause, was simply normal. The body is designed to move between glucose and fat, between insulin's domain and glucagon's. When that oscillation is allowed, something subtle happens. The chemistry of constant storage loosens its grip. Insulin stops being permanently elevated. The receptors that had grown numb to its constant presence become more responsive. The traffic jam of energy that defines insulin resistance slowly, patiently, can begin to clear. In that internal shift, ketones appear. As fat is broken down for fuel, the liver spins some of it into small molecules that can cross barriers even glucose struggles with, feeding the brain, the heart, and other organs. Ketones often get marketed as a miracle, but they are better understood as a kind of emergency currency, one the body mints for times when food is scarce and the brain still needs to think clearly. People who spend time in this state describe a peculiar clarity, a clean burning focus. Part of that is psychological. Part of it is biochemical. Neurons that have been bathed in fluctuating blood sugar and inflammatory signals are suddenly offered a steadier, quieter fuel. Glucose no longer spikes and crashes its way through the day. The brain can settle, and in that settling, many notice that their inner noise softens. But the most interesting work of fasting may not be about fuel at all. When there is no incoming stream of food to digest, no constant queue of nutrients demanding sorting and storage, the body is freed to do something it puts off under chronic surplus: housekeeping. Inside each cell, damaged proteins, misfolded structures, and tired mitochondria accumulate over time. The cell has a way to clear and recycle them, a process called autophagy, literally self-eating. Fasting is one of the signals that nudges this process into gear. It is not a dramatic purge so much as a disciplined cleanup shift. Old, inefficient components are broken down, their raw materials reused to build fresher, more functional ones. At the level of the whole body, this does not look like a detox commercial. It looks like gradual improvement in how tissues respond, how they handle stress, how they repair after damage. It is tempting, in the age of quick answers, to jump from fasting supports cellular repair to fasting cures everything. This is where we must be careful. Insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes are not simply the result of one bad habit, and they are not undone by one practice. They are knots tied over years, involving genetics, diet, movement, sleep, stress, and social conditions. Yet it is also true that giving the body longer stretches without food, especially within an overall pattern of eating that does not overwhelm it with sugar and ultra-processed calories, can untie some of those knots. Lower average insulin levels, improved sensitivity of cells to insulin's signal, reduction of visceral fat around the organs, all of these create conditions in which blood sugar control can improve markedly. Some people, supported by clinicians and broader lifestyle changes, do move their diabetes into remission. The fasting is not magic. It is one key part of a wider realignment. Beyond formal diagnoses, there is the quieter question of internal damage that never makes it to a name in a medical chart. The liver slowly accumulating fat, the vessels stiffening under the whisper of high blood pressure, the brain carrying a fog that no scan can quite capture. These are the injuries of modern abundance: constant grazing, late-night meals, bright screens, stress that never quite breaks but never quite yields. Here, fasting is less a treatment protocol and more a change of rhythm. When the last meal ends earlier in the evening, when the night is allowed to be long and unbroken by calories, the liver is given hours to clear, to export fat, to resensitize its machinery to insulin. Over weeks and months, enzymes can normalize, stiffness can soften, the quiet drip of fatty liver disease can reverse. Not because of a single heroic fast, but because the daily pattern of demand and rest has been rewritten. At night, another system awakens, the brain's own waste-clearing network. While you sleep, cerebrospinal fluid pulses more freely through the brain's tissue, washing away metabolic byproducts that accumulate during wakefulness. Deep, slow-wave sleep seems especially important for this glymphatic circulation. Late heavy meals, fragmented nights, alcohol, and constant light all blunt this process. By contrast, allowing a long enough window between the last bite and bedtime can ease the burden. Fewer surges of blood sugar and insulin at night, less reflux, more stable body temperature, all of these support more continuous, restorative sleep. Some people find that as their metabolic health improves, they no longer need to sleep longer, but they wake feeling as if the sleep they do get has finally become effective. The goal is not to boast about surviving on fewer hours, but to reclaim a night in which the brain can do its own version of autophagy in peace. The lymphatic system, too, belongs in this picture, though we should speak of it with the same humility. It is not a set of pipes to be violently drained by a trick, so much as a quiet circulation that depends on movement, breath, hydration, and the overall inflammatory tone of the body. When fasting leads to weight loss, lower insulin, and reduced inflammatory signaling, the environment that lymph moves through becomes less hostile. Swollen tissues ease, immune cells travel their routes with fewer detours, and the sense of heaviness that some people carry begins to lift. Again, this is not instant, and it is not guaranteed. It is the cumulative result of a body no longer being asked to constantly process excess. In that sense, fasting is less about deprivation and more about trust. Trust that your body is not as fragile as food marketing makes it seem. Trust that you can survive a few hours without a snack. Trust that, given time and space, your cells know how to repair, how to recycle, how to rebalance. It is not a cure-all. It is not a shield against all disease. But it is one of the simplest ways to step out of the permanent present of consumption and back into a more ancient rhythm. To eat when it is time to eat, to abstain when it is time to abstain, and to let your body remember, in those stretches of empty time, how to heal from within. If you choose to explore this path, let it be with gentleness. Start with curiosity rather than zeal. Listen to the signals that ease and the ones that strain. Seek guidance if you live with illness or take medications. Refuse the narratives that tie your worth to how long you can go without food. Fasting is not a performance. It is a quiet art of stepping aside so that the work you cannot see, the rise of glucagon, the dance of ketones, the sweep of autophagy, the night shift of the liver and brain, can unfold without interruption. In that quiet, some of the damage long ignored may begin, slowly, to mend.